You're listening to New England Real Estate Journal Radio with Rick Kaplan, New England's source for commercial real estate news. This is New England Real Estate Journal Radio on the Money Matters Radio Network and online at moneymattersboston.com.
Welcome to the New England Real Estate Journal Radio Show. I'm Rick Kaplan with Eric Wilson. And Eric, we had a busy week last week. We had our event in Portsmouth, New Hampshire, and it was fantastic.
It was. What a huge turnout.
Great turnout.
We do really good up in the northern New England section of for our events. Huge turnout. 180, 190.
Yeah, the event venue was very nice as well.
Yeah, it was. That was a great. If anyone hasn't been there, they should definitely check it out.
It's at the Marriott Residence Inn.
Yep.
And it was in the back, the event conference center.
Yeah, it was the Portsmouth Executive and Business Center.
Executive and business, or events and conference?
We might have an event and conference center, right? Either way, it's
good.
right across the street from the Marriott Residence Inn in Portsmouth. If you have an event in Portsmouth, it's definitely a great venue for that.
Right, and if anyone wants to see our shows, not only can you listen to it on Money Matters Radio Network, you can find us on iTunes,
Stitcher,
Spreaker, NEREJ.com/radio or NYREJ.com/radio, or you can watch us. And what better to do than to spend a Saturday afternoon or evening with your loved ones watching the NEREJ radio show.
Yeah, definitely
on YouTube.
If you want to laugh for an hour.
Yeah, just go to YouTube and type in NEREJ Radio, and you'll get all our shows.
It seems so weird that we're back in the studio. We've been gone for so long.
Yeah, a couple of weeks we've been out. We've been doing a little of
on-site
traveling.
shows.
Yeah.
The Help Conference was great. Check out that video on YouTube, talking about the latest in the hospitality industry. And, next week, check out for the Cocktails and Conversations. Where
we talked a little bit about the Olympics on that as well.
We did. And
today we have a guest coming on. Spencer Macalaster, he is the Executive Vice President at Risk Strategies Company, and he's going to talk to us, or tell us what happens when you have rioting and you own property in that area, it gets destroyed.
Right.
And same with terrorist acts.
Mm-hmm.
Commercial real estate, like in Baltimore, they had that big CVS, brand new CVS. Mm-hmm. The thing was destroyed.
Right.
But
Ferguson had them as well.
Yeah, and Ferguson. And
it's been a lot of riots in the last
it's going throughout the whole country right now.
Right.
With these, the police actions that are going on, and, people get, I don't understand the rioting. It doesn't really get the message out, but it's happening.
Yeah, I think I'm not really into the political side of the whole issue. I didn't grow up there. I don't live in that culture. I don't know how they're being treated. I don't know any of the circumstances. I just know that on the commercial real estate side of it, we were really interested when we were looking at these riots, not on the political side, but on what happens to those who own the property in the area or the apartment complexes. Does insurance cover these types of things when they're not planned? You don't. I'm getting riot insurance, assuming something terrible.
Well,
you also,
happen. When you buy a piece of property, whether it's residential or commercial, when you buy a piece of property, you are expecting it. You're buying it, and you're going to protect your investment.
Of course.
So you're not the person that's going to be out rioting,
right.
Obviously. But you would think the people that have apartments or even own their own home in those areas, they want to protect their area.
Of course.
So it doesn't make sense to me that they are going out and destroying the place that they live.
Again,
I can understand them going out and trying to protect where they live and protect the kind of business that is in their area. But I don't understand the philosophy of trying to get a message out by destroying where you live.
Again, I don't have to get the message out, so I wouldn't know the best avenue to get it out. Obviously, the last 60 years hasn't worked. So now violence is what people resort to their instincts. So I see violence as maybe that's what they thought was their last escape.
I don't think that gets the message out. I think that gets a bad message out.
Regardless, again, if you've tried 1,000 ways to get your message out and it hasn't gotten out, and then you go to violence, and then people say, well, violence isn't the answer. Well, unless you have a better answer, you have to expect violence. And that's kind of the way that our world's worked since the dawn of mankind.
Yeah, but if the violence was against like a government office or something like that, as opposed to, destroying your place where you live,
But you don't own the place. A lot of people don't own the places they live.
Yeah, but still, that's where they go home at night. That's where they sleep. That's what
I'm not saying I understand it. I'm just saying I don't presume to understand it. I don't know the circumstances.
Well, I don't understand it either.
I didn't grow up in it.
Doesn't make sense, I should say.
Yeah, but it is what it is. You have to deal with it. It's obviously a systemic problem in these areas because this isn't the first time that this has happened.
Right.
And if you don't have some kind of correction from the core, this is something that's going to happen again. And as always, like in anything you talk about, it falls back on leadership.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and you have poor representation.
Yeah.
And this is what happens.
Yeah, you need better leadership.
It might be out of a sense of frustration. Maybe
I'm assuming that's what I mean, again, I don't know. But I do know on the commercial side, it is an interesting subject,
Well, I want to thank our sponsors of the show, CompStack, Video Doorman, City of Hartford, Connecticut, City of Warwick, Rhode Island, City of Marlborough, Mass., and I think I got them all.
Not Rochester?
Oh, and City of Rochester, New Hampshire. How could I ever forget them?
Yeah,
they were our sponsors at our event.
I
want to thank them again.
Of course, I know we have the 4 cities. That's how I remember. One in each state.
Yeah, and they're doing some great things in Rochester, New Hampshire.
They do.
But right now, we'll be right back on Money Matters Radio Network.
The next level in commercial real estate. This is New England Real Estate Radio on the Money Matters Radio Network and online at moneymattersboston.com.
Commercial real estate can be a risky endeavor if you don't have all the information you need to make an educated decision. Why spend time digging for data when CompStack provides investors, lenders, and landlords accurate lease comps for office, industrial, and retail properties, starting rents, concessions, and more in just a few clicks? The world's largest investors and lenders use CompStack to benchmark their properties and underwrite their deals. Shouldn't you? CompStack. Better data, better deals. Visit getleasecomps.com today.
Rick Kaplan on the Money Matters Radio Network and online at moneymattersboston.com.
And we're back on New England Real Estate Journal Radio. I'm Rick Kaplan with Eric Wilson. And we have on the phone with us is Spencer Macalaster. He's the Executive Vice President at Risk Strategies Company. Good morning, Spencer.
Good morning, Rick. Good morning, Eric.
Good morning.
So tell us a little bit about Risk Strategies Company.
Risk Strategies is a commercial property and casualty insurance broker headquartered in Boston. We have 19 offices and about 500 professionals throughout the United States. And we represent all kinds of commercial risk, retailers, real estate owners, commercial, residential, you name it, across the country and across the globe, in fact. So we're a regional broker, but with a national footprint.
And we appreciate you coming on, Spencer. Spencer is in New Orleans. It's a convention, right?
That's right. This week is the Risk Insurance Managers Society meetings. Every year they host a national convention, and all of the risk managers and anyone involved with insurance gathers together and shares information and talks about events of the day as it pertains to insurance.
Is that acronym RIMS?
That is correct.
My
it's
building
RIMS,
has
Risk
flood
Insurance
insurance and the
Managers.
basement's flooded,
Yep.
so my electrical's
Well,
not working.
we appreciate you coming on because all these
I have
things
to
that are
buy
happening
flood
right
insurance?
now. We have the
building's
rioting
covered.
in Baltimore, and then the trial that's going on for the
I don't own the
marathon
building.
bomber, and
I
that was
own
a
the
terrorist
business.
act. And so a lot of these things that are coming, that are going on throughout the whole country, throughout the world, I would say right now. There's so many people that own property. And, one of the things that we're looking for, how do you answer someone that's looking to purchase property or even owns property, commercial, even residential, but mostly commercial? What do they do as far as insurance? what covers and what doesn't cover?
Yeah, I think the most important thing that they can look for with their agent or their broker is to make sure that their property insurance has what we call all risks coverage. There are two types of property coverage. One is specified peril, which will insure you for specifically a fire, or specifically a tornado, or specifically a hurricane, or you can get all risk coverage, which will provide a broad form of coverages, including fire, water damage, wind damage, etc. But then, in addition, specifically to your question, the causes of loss can include vandalism or civil commotion, civil disobedience. So, from the standpoint of a Ferguson exposure or a Baltimore exposure, those business owners, if they have an all-risk property coverage policy for their business, they should be insured to the limits that they purchase for the damages that they incur. You want to make sure that you're protecting against your business interruption. You want to make sure that you're protecting against the theft of your property and the destruction of your property. It's an awful event. Fortunately, the insurance industry is prepared to address it, and the policy forms, even with the insurance services offices or ISO policies, will address those exposures.
Now, but how do you pitch this to a commercial property owner and say, I'm looking to buy property, I buy it in Dallas, Texas, and say in the near future there's a riot that breaks out? How do you plan for that? You know what I mean? So instead of just getting as you said, the all risk insurance or the fire, hurricane, tornado one, how do I go and move me to, and then obviously it costs more for all risk. How do you get them to buy into that?
Well, I think that a prudent business owner, the all risk policy is part of the it's part of this generally available ISO form. Mm-hmm. So there's not a significant cost delta to purchase the all risk coverage. Mm-hmm. Where the nuances come in are with the limits that you buy, whether you buy a business interruption coverage, whether you include flood insurance, which is specifically excluded outside the ISO form, whether you buy hurricane insurance, whether you buy earthquake insurance. So depending upon where they are geographically, if you talk about a Texas business owner, what you would likely recommend is for them to look at endorsements to the policy that extend coverage to include named storm perils and flood perils, because there is, especially in Houston, there has obviously been a fair amount of experience with those exposures and those losses.
Right.
Now, we talk about the riots and the acts of terrorism that are going on right now. Now, those are things that you really can't, as a insurance company, how do you determine, this might be a high risk for terrorism, this area? So we would recommend that to our clients, because this could happen anywhere in the, it does no specific area that a terrorist act would happen.
You just, Boston's an example. You just never know. Post 9/11, Congress passed a law at the behest of the insurance industry and to try to stabilize the insurance industry, commonly known as TRIA, the Terrorist Reinsurance Investment Act. And the purpose of the act was to allow, or actually mandate, that carriers provide the option to insureds that are purchasing policies for terrorist coverage. Now, there's a couple of caveats to the TRIA endorsement, which is on every policy, and every policy holder has the right to either accept it or decline it. And it is offered as a mandate through the TRIA. It was just reestablished as of December of this year. So it is still in place and still offered by the carriers. But the caveats are that the Terrorist Act, has to be the government Secretary of State has to declare it a terrorist act. First, secondly, it has to be more than $5 million worth of damage. So if you get those two events, then the policy will respond if you purchase the endorsement.
Wow.
So if you purchase the endorsement, so if you have a smaller piece of property that's not even worth $5 million, you wouldn't even be talking to someone about that.
Well, again, it's the cumulative loss. So the $5 million could be multiple properties. Let me use the Boston bombing as a for instance. It damaged a number of retail locations. Mm-hmm. If those retail locations purchased as the endorsement, purchased the endorsement under their coverage, then in all likelihood the rebuilding and the loss of business income during the restoration of the property would be covered. If they did not purchase it, then they could get into a battle with their carrier and have an uninsured loss. That's a decision. There were a number of establishments that did have ongoing battles, and the challenge with Boston was I don't think they ever declared it as a terrorist act. So then it becomes an explosion and damage as a result of a bomb, an explosion. And so then you get into the nuances of coverage. And in some cases, coverage was afforded to those businesses. In some cases, the carrier declined coverage and they had a battle on their hands. So it really depended upon the carrier, on the coverage, and the relationship that the individual company had. So
the carrier, if the government doesn't declare it a state of a terrorist act, there's a major issue for a lot of these property owners.
That's right. It could be a situation where they could find themselves uninsured, depending upon the nature of the language of the policy.
I have a question. What about back to the riots thing? What about arson? So does an insurance person have to go in to make sure that it was a fire? Say a fire was started, as you saw in the CVS. How do we know that the building owner didn't set fire to it while the chaos is going outside due to video? Do they have a way to break that down, or is it all part of the civil disobedience?
Well, that's a great question. If the owner caused the fire, that obviously is a fraudulent act.
Right.
And there are some fairly specific laws that would hold that owner accountable for committing insurance fraud or committing arson. If the fire was set by a perpetrator as part of the vandalism of the civil commotion, then that ensuing fire and the damage that resulted from it would in all likelihood be covered under the policy.
Well, I can understand, and I didn't even think of that. And
I was just thinking, if you own a business and you like you're saying, why I could pay somebody $300 to set fire to my building.
Right, now I can get a new building put up. Yeah.
Granted, I'm thinking on playing devil's advocate here. I was just saying, how does the insurance company have to go in there and inspect like they would on any other insurance claim? And how long does it take for a turnover for that business to get reimbursed?
The time frame depends upon, again, if you've got suspicious circumstances that gave rise and there is an arson investigation, there could be a delay in the settlement of a claim. And the carrier reserves the right to assess and review the circumstances that give rise to a claim. Mm-hmm. If it's fairly straightforward, the adjuster should be able to come in, look at the cause of loss, say that it is, in fact, a covered cause of loss, and then they would establish the rebuilding cost and the loss of time that the business is out, and they would offer a settlement to the insured. And depending upon if there's a bank involved, they would cut a check, and there would be a loss payee, and the person that's on the policy, the first named insured, would get a check to repair and rebuild their premises.
Well, you can see that Eric, would get a higher rate than I would get because of the way he thinks.
I also have my one last outside the box question would be, now say it's granted it's all up and up on the up and up. Someone a perpetrator set fire, but the insurance company is still investigating because there may be something that was out of the loop. My question is, for each day that the investigation goes on, is that another day toward your losses and your business insurance? Because every day that it sits out and you haven't got your settlement check, you're losing business that you would normally have if it was open. Does that money continue, or is it once the claim is claimed, that's the end of where we accumulate what you've lost?
Or do they have a cap on that?
No, the business interruption coverage is during the course of construction until you receive, and in some cases you can get extended period of indemnity, they call it, which provides for reestablishing the operation to its full capacity. So, first of all, you get your business interruption during the time that the premises is damaged, during the time of repair, and then in some cases, with the extended indemnity, you can get additional coverage to reimburse you for the loss of business until such time that you're back to full operation.
All right.
So now the coverage that, well, I can see the insurance companies that are offering these types of coverage, they could actually lose their shirts. When you have an area that's being riots like every 3 weeks, there's a lot of property damage, big terrorist acts, quite a bit of damage to the properties. Insurance companies are paying out tons and tons of money.
I mean, the insurance industry is built around taking risk. It is built around developing enough capital to be able to absorb significant losses. I mean, Katrina was a significant loss. Andrew was a significant loss. Sandy in New York, tremendous loss. Sandy poses an interesting question because if you think about it, let's take, for example, a law firm that's located on the 28th floor of a building, and they buy a policy for that law firm. Do you think that the partners, when they're given the option of buying flood insurance or not, and there's additional premium involved with it, and a partner says, I'm not going to pay for that. We're on the 28th floor. We don't have any flood exposure. Well, in the case of Sandy, that building was shut down. They can't get it. They can't operate. And they go to their carrier and say, hey, I've got a loss. The carrier says, hey, guess what? You didn't buy flood insurance. So therefore, you're going to be uninsured for this event. So, you've really got to pay attention to the coverage, to the exposure, and to the potential for loss. That's where I think a prudent risk management broker advisor is really an integral part to the intellectual team that you put together to protect your business.
But now my point was being that is the cost of the policy going to be so much that the business cannot absorb it anymore? I
think that like any business or like any industry, the insurance industry goes through cycles. Post Andrew, the industry suffered from what we call a hardening market. Premiums went up in response to the catastrophic losses that the industry suffered. Post Sandy, what we're seeing some pressure on the pricing and availability of flood insurance. But for the most part, there is sufficient capacity in the marketplace to sustain these losses, pay for these losses, and the carriers can continue operations without being really egregiously overcharging businesses so that everybody can continue on. The purpose of insurance is to have protection against the unknown, against the catastrophic. That's what the industry's built on, and I think that for the most part, it fulfills its promise to its policyholders.
My last question, Spencer, before we have to let you go, I know you only have 20 minutes because you're at this convention, is you said that someone on the 28th floor now, if that building's shut down because of a flood that gets into the basement, does every tenant of that building have to buy flood insurance in order to get that coverage back?
If they don't have flood insurance and they have a business interruption loss, and that would be the covered cause of loss.
If you own the building, though, not if you're a tenant. So wouldn't the building
the tenant can't get access to the premises.
Right. So they can't get insurance unless they have flood insurance. Well, so the building and every tenant inside would have to get flood insurance in order for everyone to get paid due to a flood.
Well, it depends. It's individual. So the building, if they have flood insurance, they would be reimbursed for their loss of rent or loss of income as a result of not being able to operate the building. If the individual tenant loses access as a result of a flood and they do not purchase insurance, then they could have an uninsured loss.
Okay.
Well, we appreciate you giving us the time, Spencer. I know you're at the convention, but it was some of the information that I think we needed to get out right now. Definitely. And people looking to find out what happens in these situations, and I think you answered those.
I'd love to have you come on again and talk more about all different kinds of insurances as well.
I'd be more than happy to. I really appreciate the opportunity to talk with you guys. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And that was Spencer Macalaster. He is the Executive Vice President at Risk Strategies Companies. And we'll be right back on Money Matters Radio Network.
Rick Kaplan and Eric Wilson, right here on the Money Matters Radio Network and online at moneymattersboston.com.
Listen, are you living in a condo or co-op? Do you have difficulty receiving deliveries from UPS, FedEx, or your pharmacy when you're not home? Well, there's a solution. Video Doorman. It's a security system with live on-call operators for condos and co-ops that receives packages when you're out, stores them in a safe package room, and then notifies you about your delivery. They can even handle dry cleaning, pickup, and delivery. But there's more. If you come home late at night and don't feel safe, just press the Video Doorman key fob, and the Video Doorman operator will greet you by name and escort you right up to your floor. He can see you and speak to you and handle any potential problem. And Video Doorman costs only about $1 a day. Call Video Doorman at 888-697-3630 or visit videodoorman.com to receive a free building evaluation. That number again is 888-697-3630. Call now, feel safer, and never miss a delivery again.
And we're back on New England Real Estate Journal Radio. I'm Rick Kaplan with Eric Wilson, and we had a very good conversation with Spencer Macalaster, strategy, risk strategies management corporation, I should say.
Risk Strategies Company.
I'll get it right one of those.
Yeah, you will. He was a great guest because he had firsthand. It seemed like very expertise knowledge in these type of insurances that go on with riots or acts of God or acts of terror. And
but and when you're buying a piece of property, a lot of times you don't think of the act of terrorism, and you don't think of the riots.
If you do, you're Nostradamus.
Right. So you don't think of all that.
You
don't think of earthquakes. You don't think of microbursts. You don't think of things like that.
Right.
And they happen.
Right.
And now they happen more often than they did in the past.
Yes. I think it's one of those crazy things. People don't realize that we're on a fault line here in Massachusetts as well because we don't have those earthquakes, but we could. At any point in time, there could be one.
It's just that
I don't think
no one's
the rioting and the acts of terror are. I just don't get that. As a logical human being, how are you supposed to?
Why would the rich want to change it?
Insurance for
We're already in.
Those aren't supposed to happen. Do you know what I'm saying?
Not supposed to happen.
It's not like an act of God where a blizzard or a hurricane or a tornado. Those are supposed to happen. That's weather.
Right.
But someone rioting in my city and burning down my building, or someone blowing me up because we don't believe in the same whatevers is something. Why are we preparing
right? Well,
for
that's
this?
Who would ever have expected two planes to fly into what was
a building.
How many stories was the
42 was up on 42nd floor. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. So who would ever in a million years expect that?
You're not, and I guess they're saying, well, then you should have been prepared. But again, an insurance company doesn't. And I obviously didn't get my personal opinions when Spencer was speaking to us because he's just lending his expertise with facts. But the company that said no to the Boston Marathon because the Secretary of State didn't declare an act of terror and they didn't insure the buildings there, I cannot believe they weren't put on social media. And every building did not just withdraw that company immediately. Like, I'll go find another one.
Yeah,
there's
but
plenty
it
of companies
doesn't
that will
matter.
insure
You could find 20 million. They're all going to have the same.
Well, that's a systemic problem that we were talking about earlier. That's why people riot.
It's also but you also have to look at insurance company. It is a business, and their object is to make money,
which is weird. Make money on people's mishaps.
Right. That's how they make money.
Right, and that's a big
when you're paying your premium every year.
Right.
That's going into this enormous pool that they make all their investments from to pay out their claims.
Right.
But
and they
their
hope
claims
that they don't have to
exceed.
Pay you.
Yeah, well, they have to manage that.
Well, they try not to pay you.
Yeah, so the claims are lower than what their profits are.
It's built on the idea that it's there to help you. And in actuality, it's there to take from you.
Well,
because it's a business.
It's built on the idea. You're right.
It's like healthcare at this point.
Yeah, and the same idea.
Right.
Same idea.
And that's our systemic issue.
It's a business.
Right. Those things can't be businesses. They can't be.
Well, yeah. Well, they make them lots of money, so
yeah,
it's hard
I
to
understand
change
that. But if you want, and again, my personal opinion is, if you want to move forward in this future with less riots and less acts of terror,
but that's
you
why
need to
I brought
stop
up
making
the
money
point.
on people dying.
But that's why I brought up the point of, we have all these acts of, you have
violence.
Violence, which is rioting, and you have the Terrorist Act, and you have flooding, and you have. If you have a lot of these, and these insurance companies are paying out all this, what's the next thing they do?
They raise your premiums
they
to get their money
raise your
back.
premium.
Of course, they're not trying to lose money.
At what point does it get too costly for you to be able to even afford to have the insurance?
I think people are at that point now. They're forced to buy health insurance the same way. Like, a lot of people can't afford health insurance, but they're forced to buy it in order to be seen.
Yes. And my thought on that, the health insurance, if the government is going to step in to make everyone buy the health insurance, well, they have to come up with some kind of a way that it works with your tax dollars, where it's not coming out of your pocket like it is now.
Right.
For a family to spend like $1,500 a month on health insurance, it's kind of nutty.
It's insane.
An individual spending $600 a month on health insurance. It's a lot of money for middle class or lower class families.
Right. Well, that's a systemic issue. Is you're putting the impoverished at a disadvantage. One, for healthcare itself. The fact that you're forcing someone to have these stressful situations during their health issues is ridiculous. Stress is like the number one causer of death.
Yeah.
You're putting people in stress in order to get there to be seen by a doctor? That makes no sense.
But this is probably
because people make money.
And this
they
is
keep
before
it going.
you probably don't remember this because you're younger. But when you had health insurance, you went to the doctors, and you might have had a $5 copayment,
right,
if you had a copayment, and everything would be covered.
Right.
Now you go to the doctors, you're paying $1,500 a month, and now you're getting a bill for your test or procedure until you reach $2,000.
Exactly.
So you're, not many people, unless you have a severe medical issue.
Mm-hmm.
Not many people are getting that enormous bill of $10,000, $15,000, or $100,000 for the year.
Right.
Most people just reach their copay.
Right.
The $2,000 or $1,000.
Well, I think that's why the whole Affordable Care Act was to get the people between 18 and 35 who never see the doctor to pay the same money each year, so that people in their 60s who see the doctor, once a month, twice a month, whatever, are covered. But they were covered before. The problem is the insurance company wasn't making as much money as it needs to cover them. So they obviously something happened where they're now forcing everyone to have insurance to see a doctor.
My point was that you're paying
outrageous amount of money.
You're paying every month, and then when you have to go to the doctors, you're paying for that.
Exactly.
So there's really nothing coming out of the insurance company's pocket for the first for every year, unless there's a major medical issue.
Right, exactly. That's what I don't get. So, and their whole thing is to ask you to pay this premium, ask you to pay for this coverage, and then tell you, I'm going to nitpick this whole worded document to show you how I don't have to pay you.
Right.
That's insane. Someone's health is on the line, and you're looking at it as a dollar and cents type transaction. People are just numbers to you. That's a terrible situation.
And it makes no sense because as a result, probably more people that have insurance go to the doctors less because they don't want to have to pay that.
Exactly.
That
these
copay.
things are all working against themselves. Every
Right.
time they tweak something, it works against themselves because the whole system's built on making money.
Right.
The whole American government. How are you supposed to fix problems if you're always looking at what's my bottom line? That can't be an
I
issue.
think Blue Cross Blue Shield, and I don't even want to. I hate to use company names, but there was the chairman of the board, probably 5 years ago, had to step down because he was making like $10 million, $20 million a year or something for a nonprofit.
Right. Exactly.
It's just crazy stuff like that.
It's just crazy things.
I don't have the exact numbers, but that's
Right.
how how does that happen where someone that's the head of that operation and they make all that money? And, Charlie Baker also, he's the governor of Massachusetts, but he did make a lot of money in the insurance, health insurance industry.
I've yet to see anyone who was in the insurance game that didn't make a lot of money. Much like I've never seen anybody who's owns things that doesn't make good money. I would say the crazy thing is we were talking about nonprofits. Roger Goodell, the NFL is now going to be part of the tax game because everyone's been upset about him. He's making $44 million a year for a nonprofit. How is that even possible?
Right. It makes no sense.
Yes, you're supposed to be giving that money away. How are you taking $44 million from it, which is insane? Again.
Right. Well, it's pretty bad when you have nonprofits now being very profitable for a lot of the members.
Right. Well, it's also bad when the people who make money.
That's not how it was supposed to be set up.
Right. But I also think when you set up a policy that the rich make policies, right? Pretty much they're the lobbyists. They're the ones who own these lobbyists who go to see these senators and your leadership, and they're the one who pitches them. They put these policies into place for what reason? So for their own agenda to get more money. If the rich are making the policies to get rich, how is that benefiting the America as a whole? It doesn't.
No, because
that's my 2 cents on all of that stuff.
All right. Well, we could talk about that all day long.
Right. That's why I try not to get into the political side of all this. I just don't get it.
And big business, it's a different world.
I just don't understand why.
And the philosophy is a lot different than the middle and lower class.
Here's a weird thing. You ever watch the show Hoarders?
Yes, I do.
Yeah. And we look at those people like, how can you live like that? That's how I look at rich people. Why are you hoarding?
Right.
You're hoarding all this money for what? To die and pass it on to next generations? Like, that doesn't make sense to me. You obviously have an issue, a disease, and you should go see a psychologist because you're not living regular. I guess. I don't know. I don't live regular either, but I just never understood. I always looked at it that way.
Well, the whole thing is that most wealthy people, the most important thing to them is the money in their life.
Right. Which is bizarre.
The values that get little messed up as you make more and more money. Mm-hmm. Well, for a lot of people. There are some people that still live that.
Warren Buffett.
Yeah, they live the regular.
Still isn't that $40,000 home in Omaha?
Right, but why does he need? He's going to give it away just like
at the end of the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation with Bill Cummings, who was one of our guests who talked about it.
But that was why, because they had the amount of money they had, they couldn't live on. It was so much that they couldn't live their whole life and spend every penny. Their
Not
kids
even close.
couldn't live their whole
Yeah.
life and spend every penny.
We're talking 6, 7 generations down, probably. won't be able
Right.
to spend
So
that
I
kind of
mean,
money.
it's they're
And
well,
that money makes money.
Right, and they're well taken care of. They can live a normal lifestyle, but they're not going to live the lifestyle of the rich and famous. You know,
I don't even think that lifestyle should exist. How is that even possible?
I don't know. I sort of would like that.
Yeah, you'd like to live like that, but imagine if that lifestyle was affordable to everyone. It could be, because we make the rules.
Right.
We're the humans on this planet. No one made rules before us. We make the rules. But we don't, for whatever reason, we're not allowed to change them. And
That's
then
true.
people riot in the streets. And bad things happen.
Yeah, that's true.
You know?
Bad things do happen. You know, but I don't want to. You know, we want to move on to something that has to deal with commercial real estate. It is a
Right.
commercial real estate show.
Big thing happened. Big news in Massachusetts. For all those who haven't heard, you should check out our show with TerraTech Corp's president, Derek Peterson, who is looking to buy dispensaries and...
Well, I'm getting the signal from Corey, but
We'll have to
this
talk
is
about-
big news.
We'll
though.
talk about it when we come back. is
We
what
want
you
to
say?
talk about this because you know, our show on cannabis
Yeah.
and medical cannabis, or should I say medical marijuana?
It's all
You
the
know,
same.
it is a hot issue right now.
It is.
But right now we have to go to a break. We'll be right back on Money Matters Radio Network.
Rick Kaplan is right here on the Money Matters Radio Network.
And we're back on New England Real Estate Journal Radio. I'm Rick Kaplan with Eric Wilson, and we're coming to a close of a show. But when we left the last segment, we were starting to talk about some news that you found.
Yeah,
is happening.
yesterday. So for those who don't know, we just did a show a few weeks ago with Derek Peterson, the CEO of TerraTech Corp, who is looking to purchase industrial space as well as dispensary space, retail space for his brand, the IVXX medical marijuana dispensaries and growth. As you know, here in Boston, we've voted to allow medical marijuana in our state, and so far we've had like 100 applicants trying to buy licenses to open up a dispensary, and the Department of Public Health has failed to follow its own regulations on allowing this to go forward. So it's kind of been in this limbo, so to speak. But yesterday, a judge from the Suffolk Superior Court ruled that they have to restore all licenses, especially to the company previously headed by Congressman William Delahunt, to open dispensaries in Plymouth and Mashpee. So,
Which he was the head of the charge to get that legalized in Mass.
Right, he was.
But some of those licenses that they issued were to people that shouldn't have been getting licenses. So if they're restoring all of those, that means those people will still get those licenses? That was one of the issues.
People getting licenses to open the dispensary, or people getting licenses to use?
No, to open up dispensaries.
Right.
And they were not, some were have criminal record.
Right. So what they did was they took the 100 applicants, they weeded them down to 20, and then they were going to pick the best 3 to open the first 3 in the state. And so far, the Department of Public Health has yet to follow up with that inspection phase. So that's when the judge restored, you need to get these licenses out. It's been over a year. We voted. So I know that William Delahunt, just so everyone knows, has no longer a stake in this company. But this is kind of a big issue going on, not just here in Massachusetts or in New York with TerraTech Corp or out in California or these other states, but this is going nationwide, and this will be on each ballot probably over the next 4 or 5 years in every state.
Yeah, I mean, it's difficult when you're starting up something new, like this type of a business. They don't really have the right mix yet on how everything should work. And the problem is, are they going to be prepared to change things as they go along to fix that? Because that's always an issue with anything that's being regulated through a government.
Right. The policy has to be written in such that it can evolve with the information as it comes back. I think the best part about the this whole bill and all these things being voted is the science that can go behind it now, that people can actually use and experiment with and find out, all these different properties that this plant has. And I think that's really going to be the big beneficial part. But as far as commercial real estate goes, brick and mortar retail is going to come back in certain buildings.
You're probably going to see this happening more into the smaller towns, I would think.
Right.
That have all this vacant retail space.
Right.
That might bring some of that back.
Or
now,
farms in Western Mass, and farms in Vermont, farms in Maine, farms in New Hampshire. There's a lot of farmland.
And I have talked to some people that have been to some of these dispensaries in Colorado.
Yeah.
And they go in there, and these are not like shabby little
It's
retail.
Starbucks of medical marijuana.
These stores, these retail locations are very high end.
Very.
With very luxurious settings inside. You know, it's all high end.
Again, you've had 70, 80 years of bad information being leaked about who uses medical marijuana, what kind of person they are, and I think maybe once, as Derek Peterson's leading this huge charge, just getting the information out there. It's a medical plant. It serves its purpose for whatever you need. You have ailments, this can help. No, it's not for everybody. And no one's telling everybody, hey, this is now for you. Everyone go out and smoke. That would be like me saying, oh, we have a liquor store in the corner. Everyone should drink. That's ridiculous. But that's the problem with the prohibition side.
Right. I mean, that's why it has to be regulated.
Of course.
Just like anything else, like cigarettes and alcohol and any other kind of stimulants.
Another thing is a lot. Again, it's the misinformation that needs to be changed, and hopefully the science behind it will help. Everyone who thinks that you say, "Oh, it's a good thing," thinks you're a pro pothead, and you must be a stoner. And anybody who says you're against it thinks that you're a straight edge, and that's not the case. There's people for and people against it for totally different reasons.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a pothead, and I don't smoke the stuff or eat the stuff.
Right.
But I do think that it should be legalized, because the cost for it not being legalized is
right. You're
enormous.
Looking at it as the financial side, which is understandable. I look at it as, who am I to tell somebody who's in pain that this helps not to do it? This just doesn't make sense. Oh, I'm going to tell you can't smoke this because it helps
on
you.
that side of things, I think that's also an important
I only
part.
look at it the patient side. If you have cancer or AIDS or any of these colitis, Crohn's, all these diseases, and you're in pain, and this helps alleviate even a minute of it.
Well, they have cures for all those too.
Well, I'm just saying. Well,
it's just that the drug companies are holding them back.
Yeah, maybe. I just think that if you have the ability to ease
that's for another show.
Yeah, right. That's Rick's conspiracy theory on the pharmaceutical companies. But, I hope that I'm happy to see Massachusetts is on board. We'll have 2 in Plymouth and Massachusetts, so that my aunt or my mom, if they can get it, they can go take care of their pain. So bravo to Mass for letting that go.
So it's just in those 2 areas
so
right
far,
now?
yeah, Plymouth and Mashpee are the only 2 that's been selected to have a dispensary and get a license.
Now, I'm wondering why those were the 2 areas that were picked.
Cape Cod and the South Shore. I don't know. Probably money. Well, I also think the hospitals are around too. Jordan Hospital and all the cancer wards that are Beth Deaconess, and it's really for those type of pain.
But before we go, I want to change topics a little. Brockton is trying to get a casino put into where the old fairgrounds used to be.
Okay.
They're saying that
right next to the high school.
Yeah, well, that's what. But a lot of people that live in Brockton are up in arms about the whole thing. But the developer is pushing. I don't know who the developer is, but they're pushing that it's going to clean up the whole area, make it very nice. It's going to bring 1,500 jobs to the area.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to improve the traffic. It's going to make all these improvements, but the people in Brockton are thinking, well, we have a lot of other things that need to be worked on, and that's not going to be the solution. And it is right across from the high school.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It's right next to the high school.
Casino across from the high
that's
school.
Never going to fly. But unless they say we'll build a casino and we'll build you a brand new high school to go along with it.
Somewhere else.
Yeah,
Yeah.
not near you. Then yeah, maybe Brockton looks into it. That's a good little tidbit. I'm happy to know that too.
Yeah, but they've been advertising it on TV and on the radio because of the vote coming up.
Okay.
The people of Brockton can vote on it. So.
I wanted to see where that's going to fall.
Yeah, that's going to be interesting. And Corey's having a little
we had a very all over the map type show today, but it was very interesting. We had a lot of good topics: insurance, medical marijuana, riots, casino buyings.
But everything was tied to commercial real estate, and that's what our show is about.
It is.
We're bringing out the real stories about
with a few of our opinion pieces that we like.
That's
to
right.
Well,
we have opinions. Right?
Yeah, right.
Sue us. That's another show we'll have with the attorneys.
Fantastic.
Well, a good show. I enjoyed it today.
Me too.
But I think at this point, Eric,
He's a guest in our
it's
show,
time
by
for
the
us
way.
to go. And this deal is done.